We are the sons and daughters of resilience, the descendants of royalty, the builders of legacy, the ones that will outlive our name. This is not just a podcast. This is Level Up. I'm your host, Earl McCray, and in every episode, we bring you real game from real voices, from those who have paved the way to those who are building the way, and to those who will take it further than even imagined. Because it is not about just getting to the top. It's about bringing others with you. It's about breaking chains. It's about shattering limits. It's about walking in divine purpose and power. So, if you're ready to step into something greater, if you're ready to go beyond potential and into impact, if you're ready to stop waiting and start moving, then welcome home. This is where faith meets action. This is where dreams meet discipline. This is where we level up.
All right, Level Up family. It is my pleasure. Let me look at my audience. Let me turn off the screen share. Let me look at the audience in their face. Audience, family, it's Level Up time. Look, on today's episode, we have another Dan, my brother, the Reverend Ocie Clanton. Look, today's guest is a man whose life reflects one of faith, of service, and a vision, y'all. Man, I just heard this amazing quote about vision. I'm going to share it with you in a moment. But Reverend Ocie W. Clanton Jr. is a man of God. He is a preacher. He is a retired disabled Navy veteran. Thank you for your service, brother.
No doubt.
He is he is a man of the community. Professionally, he's a seasoned wide area network engineer. He works for the government, y'all, and operation manager, leading with both technical expertise and a heart of excellence. But, y'all, his true calling goes even deeper than this. Ocie is the visionary founder of the Clanton Farm Retreat, a 22-acre wellness sanctuary in Halifax County, North Carolina, currently under development. This project is designed to create spaces for healing, for rest, and for renewal, particularly for that underserved community of veterans and anyone seeking restoration through nature, with plans of tiny cabins, of nature trails, of glamping workshops, and programs that address mental health and personal growth. Clanton Farms Retreat is becoming a beacon of not only hope, y'all, but restoration. He's been married to his beautiful bride, Diane, for 34 years.
34.
But we can learn. And is the proud father of 3, grandfather of 4. Ocie's life is a powerful testimony of resilience, of faith, and of leadership, but most of all, a purpose. It is a mission he uses every day to try to inspire others to use their God-given gifts, not just to build the now, but to build the tomorrow. That's what we call legacy, y'all. And this impact on service to others is often overlooked by a few, but for others like me, it makes the difference. It makes a big difference. So listen, get ready for an inspiring conversation filled with wisdom, with vision, and with powerful life lessons. Let's welcome to Level Up my brother, Ocie Clanton Jr. It's showtime, brother.
Blessings,
how you doing,
bro? blessings. How you doing, man?
Oh man, listen. When I was getting prepared for the show today, I was going through because I didn't like how my AI did the photos. I was disappointed. I thought it could have been better. But then I was going through my old photos, man, and I came across some of our pictures of when we were in Hawaii last year.
Oh, well.
and it took me back, brother.
Yeah, man. You about to do it again.
Yeah, we are going to do it again. So, Ocie, speak directly to my audience a little bit. My audience loves a good origin story. Share with the good people your story.
Well, for me, you know, I'm married, as you know, 34 years, but a man of the Navy. I was in the Navy for about 12 years. I had to get out because of a lower back injury. So I started supporting the DoD environment and the Department of the Navy by doing contract work. And then later on, I got back into the government as a government employee, supporting cybersecurity and operations, defense, and operation management. So, um, you know, looking at my story, I look back, Earl, and when I met you, I was at a pivotal moment trying to determine, where's my life going? As we start aging, you start thinking about some different questions. You know what I'm saying? You start thinking about, have my life been purposeful? Am I doing what God requires me to do in order to please Him? So I pulled a scripture into mind, which you're very familiar with, Earl, but that really started the transformation process with me, which was found in Matthew 6:33, that says, "Seek ye first the kingdom of God and His righteousness, and all other things will be added." Now, I was saved, wow, a long time ago. And that transformational experience, I've always been a witness. I got my ordination in preaching, but there's something more that I wanted to do to impact the community. And that's where God started. Once I started looking inside, I guess, and started questioning God about, why did you create me? And what do you want to do with me? Then new doors begin to open up. And that's when I ran into you guys with Coach Jim G, when I started thinking about the gifts and talents that I read that he had inside of each one of us. And in the scripture, it says, "Your gifts will make room for you." And that's where, I started seeking, what do I really like to do? I wanted to get in real estate. I wanted to do something in real estate, but not really the flipping and all of that. I wanted to find something that resonated with me. So that's when I decided, the Airbnb space looked very interesting. And that's when I ran into Coach Jim G. And actually through that program, Earl, is where you became a mentor. And so it's trying to align with the will of God, trying to align with the purpose, and asking the deeper questions about myself. Why did you create me? What is my purpose? I'm a witness all day long for the Lord. But from a
Absolutely.
business strategic standpoint for legacy building, God, what is my part to play? And I've always been one, Earl, to share information with other people and look at them succeed while I sat on the sidelines like, man, that was my idea. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, yeah.
Anybody ever been like that? Like,
Have
that's my idea. I told them
hand
about that.
raised. Yeah, hand
Right.
raised.
And
Absolutely.
then so I began to ask, Lord, what is my purpose and what can I execute for my legacy?
Mhm.
So that's how that began with me, and that's how the transition started, Earl.
Yeah. What's beautiful about your origin story, and I want my audience to kind of hear is I've often said that success is a lot of things, but it's never a straight line. Sometimes you're gonna go over here and then bend back over here and go there. Because the
Very
truth of
good.
the matter is sometimes God wants you to experience what you don't like so you can narrow in on what you will just because you get into a mode. I know this is the case for you, OC, where you're so zoned in on what you're doing because it aligns with your passion. You look at your watch and you're like, where did the time go?
Right,
Two,
right.
3 hours just went by, and it just feels because you're now in alignment. And my audience, I want you to kind of focus on what he said. You have to be in alignment with your God-given mission, purpose, your I think we're all stamped by God at birth with a calling. And then it's our job as we evolve as adults to figure out what that calling is. God
Oh
has
yeah.
already given it to us, but He'll allow us to do all these other things that are not
Mm-hmm.
in His will, by the way,
Mm-hmm.
so that we can gravitate back to His will. I
That's
love
good. Very good. Very well said, Earl. And that's the thing too. And you really only get to that place once you start seeking him. Remember the scripture that says, if you seek, you will find, you knock, and the door shall be answered. You know, you have not because you ask not, those type of things. Well, until you get really start asking those deeper questions, you know, God, why did you create me? Why am I here? You know, and then the most significant thing for me, Earl, was to change the whole mindset about what wealth were and what that mean. You know, and we look at, you know, the world have painted the picture. You go to school, you know, get an education, come out, get a good job, you work long enough, you can retire, have this, you can buy your nice house, get your car, get your bling bling or whatever you want. And I'm here to tell you that once you've built up all those things that the world have told you is wealth, and you get to the top of the mountain of all of that stuff, and you look at your pile and you tap yourself on the back and you're like, man, I've arrived, I've gotten here. And if you don't, if you hadn't tapped into the purpose of God, all of that's going to be empty. It's going to be like sitting on a pile of trash. It means nothing. You know, the book of Ecclesiastes said, vanity, vanity, all is vanity. It means nothing. You know, and King Solomon in the book of Ecclesiastes, one of the things he did, he was trying to figure out his purpose. And he was like, you know, man, okay, God, I'm going to see what this thing of life is all about. And he went out and he wanted to do everything pertaining to building the fine as this, building the fine as that. And he said, after it all, after I looked at all of that, he said it was like chasing of the wind. All is vanity. It was like nothing. He said, so I went out and I did greater things. I had, you know, servants, and I had all of these things, wives, and I had all of these material things. And he said, and I did it. I did the best. I was the best at what I did. And I got to the top of that mountain and looked over at all that I had created. And he said, it's chasing of the wind. All is vanity. It means nothing. So unless you're tapping into what God's purpose, and I'll tell you, he ended that whole book stating that he realized that the purpose that God created us was to please him and do his good pleasure. You know, and unless you're tapping into that, you'll never find your purpose.
Oh, see, help my audience out, because there's some listeners, you know, they're good to go as long as I'm talking about business and entrepreneur in the mindset of a champion. They're good to go. But the moment I started talking about that spiritual thing, they're like, "Come on, McCray, this is not what I'm here for."
I understand. Yeah.
Help them understand that you can have one without the other, but if you holy, you check up all of those other boxes. Some people strive to be happy. Some people try to be a whole. And holiness is at the back of the line. Can you share with people why your recommendation would be seek holiness?
Here's my thoughts behind this, right? Um, and this is regardless of where you are in life. The fact of the matter is you have to face your own reality, is that you are a created being, right? And if you're a created being, and if you have a consciousness and you are a living being, then the bigger questions always evolve from that, like, how did I get here? It either leaves you one or two places. It leaves you to saying we were just haphazardly evolved out of nothing, or you're going to say, I had a creator. And if I have a creator, then you're going to want to know more about that creator. And that led me to the Bible. You know, this is where my upbringing, but in the midst of the upbringing and the teaching, there's a personal experience you got to have with Christ. You know, and if you don't have that personal relationship with Christ, then you're empty. So I understand that everybody don't prescribe to religion. Everybody don't prescribe to that. But I'm here to tell you that it's all spiritual. Building wealth, everything about you is spiritual. Everything about your life is spiritual. You are a created human being in the midst of a universe on a planet called Earth. If you could explain that, then I'd like to hear your story. But that's a very strange scenario that we're moving, living, and having our being, and we got the ability to think and touch and feel and express love and all these things, and it's just haphazardly done. It's amazing to me how people think you're just evolved out of nowhere, but all if you flip yourself inside and out, you got these beautiful organs and systems that's working together that's keeping you functioning. You can't explain it. You can't explain how you see, how you hear, how you think, how you dream, how you fall asleep, how you wake up. You can't explain none of it. Can't explain how your heart beat, how the blood flows through your veins. You can't explain it. You know why? Because that's a God thing. Science couldn't explain it. It blows the mind of the most intelligent ones that ever walked the face of the earth. They all try to understand what is it about a seed, a plant, a little small seed that a plant could come out of a seed and that it could bring forth a tree that bring forth more fruit, that bring forth more seeds and more plants and more trees, more seed. It's you know what it is? It's a reflection of who God is. He's from Alpha and Omega, the beginning and end, from everlasting to everlasting. He's God.
I love it. I love it. OC, you're taking me down this rabbit hole I had not intended to go. So we may or may not get to those questions I sent you, but this is still going to be good. I
It's
want
all
you,
good.
I want you to uh respond to Dr. Miles Monroe. He's a powerful
Great,
speaker,
powerful.
powerful, and he shares something. I'm gonna just pull it up, and I want your response on it. Uh, so the title of this article was God created both the rich and the poor, but he didn't assign them any categories. Your level of exposure often determines your level of expansion. So here's what he says. He said, Dr. Miles Monroe had a way of breaking truth down so clearly that it bypasses all excuses. What he's highlighting is that there is a divine impartiality of God, but also there's critical importance of this idea of vision. Yes, God creates both the rich and the poor, but he didn't assign them to these categories. He gave groups the same shared gift, the gift of sight, and not just physical sight, but the capacity of vision, the ability the ability to see beyond present circumstances and imagine a plan and pursue what could be. Could you talk to my audience a little bit about
Oh my,
vision?
you talking about vision, and you're
Vision.
talking about right. You're talking about the ability to see. It's like faith, right? I like Diane used to go to a church, and there was a pastor, and he had a son named Tiff McCarter that put out a record, and the record was like it says faith is the ability to step out on nothing and believe that there's something there. Um, the who we are and the gifts that God have given us inside of us, if not placed in the proper environment to grow like a seed placed in fertile ground, then the vision will die and perish and bring forth no fruit. But if you take that seed of vision and put it in the right soil and right environment, there's untapped potential in that seed of vision. And your gifts and talents that God have placed within you are just that. They're your seeds of untapped potential. And it's your responsibility to put that in the right soil. It's your responsibility to make sure you're getting that seed to fertile ground. So we make a lot of choices in life and we do a lot of things, right? But God is a gracious God. He forgives us for a lot and he still has great hope for us, right? But it's our responsibility. And as we grow in life, he said, when I was a child, I did as a child, I spoke as a child, acted as a child. But when I became an adult, I put away childish things. So the fact of the matter is, there's many of us still running around acting like children.
Come on.
We got that gift, and we running around and we playing games with the gift like we're children. But if you start seeking God and really determine that this gift is something powerful, and then for me, Earl, what it was I had the gifts inside of me of and vision inside of me, but I needed to put it in the right environment in order for it to grow. So this is where we say we need to start getting around what like-minded individuals. We
I
need to get around the right soil, the people that are doing great things with the gifts that God have given them. That's how you get stretched. You get stretched by, I think one of the questions that you put on the paper, and I'll go back to it, was you asked, let me see where that question is. What is the one business move that changed the game for you?
Yes,
And
sir.
I put on my paper partnership.
Yeah.
I said learning to leverage partnerships, whether they're government resources, community organizations, private investors, whatever, but getting around the right people will help expand that vision. And the Bible said, without a vision, the people perish.
People perish. People perish. Wow. Excellent, man. I think you knocked that out of the park. And it's so good because I think for the most part, when we underestimate what we can do in a year and overestimate what we can do in a day. And remember that book that we were digesting together called the Gap in the Game,
Oh, yeah.
where we're so focused on, okay, it's out there somewhere in the future. I got to get there. I got to get there. But we don't appreciate when we turn
Oh,
around and
my.
we look back. Talk to my people, because I think that's a big challenge for a lot of people in this entrepreneur game. They're so busy watching the clock. They're not really being as they're not a laser beam. They're more
Right,
floodlight.
right. To have that laser beam focus is what you're talking about, and it takes a while to get there because we are conditioned by the environment we're in, and we live in this high pace, fast tech, moving world, and they're always looking for the next greatest best thing, and they're always thinking in a forward motion. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that, but what I'm telling you to do is that it's power in slowing down and recognize what's in the now.
Mm-hmm.
Because the now is really all you have, right? God
Mm-hmm.
said like this: if you are faithful over a few things, then I'll make you ruler over much, right?
Much.
So he's not expecting you to be faithful over the much until you were faithful over what you have now. So before you expand, you got to explore. What is it that I have now? What is it that God have given me? I mean, even in his principles of seed time and harvest, right? Even when he was dealing with the ones that he gave gifts and talents to, he wanted to know what did you do with what I've given you now? And that's the problem. A lot of times we don't look at what we have now and what we've been given now. We may not have the resources to do the big thing that's out there on the horizon. But for instance, let me give you the scenario. When I went down to Carolina to start working on the farm retreat, I didn't have anything, Earl. I had a vision. God had given me a vision. 2 years I had walked that land and looked over the land and developed a vision like, whoa, Lord, what is this you're showing me? But when it came time to actually start work, I didn't have anything. I had a rake and a hoe,
Breaking a hole.
a rake and a hoe. And I said, Okay, I remember praying when I was down in Carolina. I mean, the shed, I had a shed. I'm doing a shed conversion for the first cabin. That was sitting there already. Had that delivered. But as the time went by, I was so busy looking at the big things that could be done, like the big resources. I want to be able to do this and get this. And the Lord said, "What are you doing now? You're not doing anything now with what I've given you." I had to explore, Lord, what is it that you've given me? I see a rake and a hoe, right? So I said, okay, I'm going to be intentional with the rake and the hoe. I took the rake and the hoe out to the farm, and I looked around and I started chopping and I started digging and I started cleaning. And I started doing what I could do with the stuff I had now. And then the next day, I got a call. When I was faithful over that little stuff, I got a call from a guy that I'm doing some investments with up in Virginia. And he said, "Man, I got these power tools that I'm not using. You want them?" And I said, "What kind of power tool?" He said, "Man, I got a blower. I got some chainsaws. I got some power, different kinds of power saws." I said, "Man, yeah, of course I want them." He said, "Well, come get them." I jumped in the car and went and got them. The next day, guess what? I had a rake, I had a hoe, and I had a chainsaw, and I had a blower. Guess what I started doing? Cutting down trees, cutting down the little saplings. I was faithful over the little things, and then God was continuing to be faithful to his promise that he would supply all of my needs according to his riches, not mine, his riches in glory. And what he did the next day after that, it was a lesson. It was all about a lesson. Is that I'm like, man, I was chopping on the trails, Earl, trying to make trails through the woods, and I'm
Yeah.
going through the trails with a hoe, rake, and a saw, and I'm like, man, and I'm excited because at first it was a burden, and then it became a joy, right? It became like, Lord, look at what you've done. You gave me a saw today. I had a rake and a hoe. Now you gave me a saw, and look at it. But it was like I had a mile to go through the woods. The next, and I went home that night and just thought about it. And I said, let me reach out to one of my friends that I hadn't talked to in a while. And I reached out to him and I was telling him what I was doing. He said, I got a trail maker. I said, what's a
Mm.
trail maker? He said, it's like a power machine that goes through and it cut trails. He said, I said, can I use it? He said, man, I get off work tomorrow, like 3 o'clock. I'll be out your place after then. He said, and he got out to the place the next day and he got this big machine on the back of the truck, ATV. He unloaded it, got it on the ground. And I said, man, show me how to use it so I can cut the trails. He said, get out the way. You ain't no country boy. I
Oh,
got you. And he started pushing the trails through the woods. And
talk
I'm
about
like,
provision. Oh
what?
my.
God say, you be faithful over the rake and the hoe. I got the power chainsaw. I got the trail maker, and he ain't done yet. I'm getting ready to get him expanded now. So I already tapped into the guy that got the big machine to come through to make them 8 feet wide. So it's like, be faithful over what God have given you now. It may not look like much, but God has always been faithful over taking a little bit and making a lot. Remember the 2 fish and 5 loaves of bread?
Yes, yes, I do. Yes, I do. What to me, one of the things is the most interesting in this story, because I do want to ask you a couple of questions for folks that are interested on how do you even get into a farm retreat business model. But the takeaway that I feel is most interesting is that so many people get stopped or get caught. They realize um there's some merit to having a business plan. They realize there's some merit to kind of having an idea. This is your starting point, this is your ending point. But they get caught up with what I call paralysis analysis. They have to have all the little details figured out in advance for them to take motion. And I'm just the opposite. I'm of the opinion it's better to take imperfect action and optimize as you go, provided you know what your why is.
Mm. Oh, that's
If you
good.
don't know what your why, and let me say it differently. If your why is not big enough to make you cry, that ain't big enough. That's not a good reason.
Not big enough. Not big enough.
Because if you have a sense on your why and you trust that God will provide the how, you just need to get busy with your rake and hoe.
Mm. Say so, bro.
So it's mind blowing how you're sharing your story with the audience, because you started with the rake and hoe, and then God created all the provisions. You didn't ask those why questions, or excuse me, you had your why, but you didn't ask the how question. How am I going to do
And
this?
let me go
How am I
back
gonna
for
do
a
that?
minute. I started with the vision.
Mhm.
I started with a vision, and I ended. I had a provisions of a rake and a hoe right there with me. But I mean, you said a lot, because I was in that space too, Earl. Where I just sat back, spinning my wheels, saying, the vision is too big for me. You know, I looked at what God was showing me, and He hadn't even shown me all of what I'm seeing now. The little bit that He was showing me about what I was gonna do was like beyond my resources. So I was sitting on the sideline trying to figure it out. The problem with me, and it may be the problem with a lot of you out there, is execution.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
We plan well, we can draw up plans, we could dream well, we could have the dream, we could talk it, we could definitely talk it.
You talk it, right?
We could talk it, man, but we don't execute. And if you don't execute, it's like who was that? I think it was Les Brown that said, on your deathbed,
Mm.
sitting around the deathbed will be all of those unused, untapped opportunities
Mhm.
that you never took because you didn't execute.
Mhm.
If you don't execute, you'll never realize what you could do. And you'll never do anything if you don't execute. There's a certain thing called potential energy, right?
Yes. Mhm.
Potential energy always sits idle. It has the potential to do great things, but unless you put it to use, it doesn't become power. It doesn't have the power to move anything. It's just potential. So don't allow what you can't see and the resources you don't have, or where you've come from in life. Don't allow those mistakes of the past, those problems, the silent voices in your head that tell you you're from the wrong side of the tracks, you're not worthy of anything, or you've made too many mistakes. Don't let any of that stuff stop you from stepping out there to execute. And it don't have to be some great thing you execute. Just do the next thing.
Awesome. Awesome. I'm gonna step into this direction right here. Because I think a lot of people that tune into this show, um, they don't really have a concrete plan. They just know that the 9 to 5 is not really working for them, and they're just looking to be inspired. So they tune in, they see guests like you, and they're just looking for something to spark that fire. I want to talk about ownership. Um, there was a article I saw recently about Deion Sanders, and Deion Sanders was really petitioning the league to get his son an NFL spot,
Mm-hmm.
and
I
had a
remember
hard
that.
time. And so the article goes on and says Deion was famed, respected, network resource, and still he couldn't get his son a jersey. Why? Because he doesn't own a team. And this exposes the fundamental difference between access and authority, between being a talent and being a decision maker. We can pass our kids shoes, we can pass them scholarships, even the spotlight, but not sustainable, but not substantially if we're not building systems. It goes on and says, that's what ownership is, a system of decision making, protection, and legacy. Dr. Claude Anderson says in his book, Powernomics, those who don't own and control anything will always be dependent on those who do. And even one of the greatest athletes of all time is bumped against the ceiling. Speak to my audience a little bit about your perspective on this value.
Good, good.
Of
You're talking
ownership.
ownership versus opportunity type thing.
Yeah.
My perspective is maybe a little different than some, right? Because you started off the conversation about people that are maybe in the 9 to 5 looking to break into ownership or into some business that will lead them there. This is where I believe it's all about mindset and it's all about strategy.
Yes,
and I believe opportunity leads to ownership. And I believe even in your W-2, I'm in a W-2 right now.
Yeah.
I'm not free from my W-2, but I don't look at it like that. I look at my W-2 as being a supplier for my vision, right?
Talk to my audience about that, because I would say that's about 95% of my audience.
Right. So the opportunity that you have there, just say if you didn't have your W-2 and you were chasing ownership, you're chasing ownership now with no funds coming in to fund that particular vision. Your W-2 affords you one, besides the obvious, the ability to live and pay your bills and do what you need to do to stay healthy in order to do the next best thing. But it also, if you're managing that thing right, you'll have some residue left over that you could filter to your dream and vision. And that is where your mindset need to change about liabilities and assets. How am I using my money as an asset versus a liability? Let me break that down. Liabilities, you understand what that is. It's when I just got to have that pair of Jordans, right? And that pair of Jordans, even though it look good, even though everybody's oohing and ahhing about those Jordans, you got the freshest pair, the next one come out, or the Apple phone or whatever happened comes out, and everybody likes that thing. But guess what? It's not bringing you a return on your investment.
No return.
We like to call it in our circle, we like our monies to have money babies.
Money baby. That's right.
Yeah, we like our money to have money babies. So if my money ain't having no babies, then I need to reevaluate what I'm doing with my money. So now just say, how could I turn that into an asset? For instance, I had an eBay business. I love finding Jordans in the thrift shops. I love finding Jordans, Hokas, all those in the thrift shop. I would go out there and I would shop around for it. Even lost my W-2 job, and I used eBay to supply funds for my household while I searched for another job. It didn't miss a beat. But my mindset about what I was looking for was different. I did the research, did the study to find out what was the things that were selling good. And then everything I found out there, I understood what kind of profit it would bring. And I had a little work to do to move it from the thrift to eBay to turn that profit. And if you understand how to move money and how to turn money, then you would understand that there's opportunity in your W-2. Mm-hmm. Don't waste your W-2 funds on liabilities. Turn them into assets. And if you need help doing that, definitely tap into us, tap into Earl, and he could definitely show you good strategies on how to do that. But so I look at opportunity and ownership as a handshake. It's a one funds the other, and ownership is great if you're doing it right. Ownership can be a liability too.
Come on.
If you don't do the right things with that ownership, if you're not strategizing and planning properly and researching properly and connecting with the right people, then your ownership could turn into a liability as well. But it's better to have that experience than not, because normally you learn through those experiences, and the next time I do ownership is going to be a little bit better, a little
Yep,
bit different.
absolutely. Yeah.
I hope
And,
that
and
was
I,
able to help somebody.
no, that helps a lot, because the truth of the matter is that we got to look at our 9 to 5, not as a 9 to 5, but that's a
A
client. And
resource.
right now, that's your biggest client.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, down the journey of time, your big client is going to be, one of several clients, i.e., your businesses. And then when that is sustainable, then that primary client, you now have some good choices.
And let me go back to this 1 minute, Earl, because going back to that W-2, I don't want you to misunderstand also, because remember I said in the beginning, you have to be faithful over the little things, and then
Mm-hmm.
God will make you ruler of much. So if you're on your W-2 complaining, slacking off, ain't doing what you're supposed to do,
Mm.
bringing burdens on the employer,
How God will bless
then you're not being faithful over a few things. If you're not faithful over that as a father, if I give a task to my children and they're not faithful, like I got a daughter that managed my Airbnb down in Hampton. I just hit her up a few minutes ago, told her we had a full house, baby girl. We need to turn the property over and get them ready for the next round. And she chimed in and said, "I got it, Dad." If she's not faithful over a few things, see, she's gonna own Clanton's. She's gonna own that whole thing I'm building out in North Carolina in the due time. All my children will own that. But if
Yes,
she's not faithful over this, she won't be a good ruler over that. So make sure you're faithful on your W-2s.
I love it. I love how you connected. You are dropping so many gems for my audience today. All right. So here's the direction that we're gonna go in now. I want you to speak a little about the misconceptions. In your mind, what is the biggest or one of the biggest misconceptions when people start talking about generational wealth? What do some people just not understand about that?
I think the misconception about generational wealth is that it equals money.
Mm-hmm.
And I think when we start talking generational wealth, um, I call it the minor leagues. We play in the minor leagues. We play, and because we've been conditioned by a world that says that in order to be wealthy, it have to equal this. It have to equal a big mansion. It got to equal a Lamborghini. It got to equal this. It got to equal that. I don't believe that's generational wealth.
Say more.
I like what you're doing with your children, Earl. You're giving your kids the tools and the wisdom and knowledge necessary. It's like the teacher man the fish, he can always eat type thing.
Mm-hmm.
To me, that's generational wealth, because it's only that knowledge and the wisdom that they apply to that knowledge that they've gotten, that's going to continue to grow, because you can give your kids a bunch of money. You can
Yes.
give them cars, land, you can give them houses, real estate portfolio, you can give them a trust fund, you can give them all of this. And within 10 years, they're going to lose it if they don't
Facts.
have
They don't
what
have a
I'm talking
mindset.
about
Yeah.
now.
Yeah.
So generational wealth is not tied up into money, things, and stuff. It's tied up into wisdom and knowledge and relationships. Um, I think one of the biggest misconceptions about wealth is another one is that um, or generational wealth. I want to say wealth. We're back that generational up to wealth. One of the misconceptions about wealth is that um, it makes you happy.
Mm-hmm. Speak on that. Speak on that.
We talk about, when I look at wealth from a world's perspective, the stuff we just talked about, and we talked about it earlier, the money, the mountain of stuff. that we classify as wealth. On top of that, we see a lot of people today committing suicide because they reached that pinnacle and it didn't fill the void. It didn't fill the void. People, let me share with you. There's emptiness in accumulating a lot of things and not have the right perspective about what it's all about. If you just have stuff, it's not going to make you happy. You got to fulfill your God's purpose. You know, I'm talking to somebody out there because you know you got some stuff, but you already know that it ain't making you happy. There's something still burning on the inside of you that you're trying to figure out. You already know that you're not tapping into your full potential. Sure, you got this, you got that, you might have the real estate, you might have all these things, but something's still burning down inside of you that's saying there's something more. There's something more. You ain't tapping it because you can't fill that void until you tap into what we talked about earlier, your spiritual man. I told you everything is spiritual. Everything is spiritual. And until you get connected in that arena, sorry to tell you, bro. Sorry to tell you, sis. Not going to mean a thing.
So good. So good. You know, you remind me of a quote that I read recently about loving the people and using the money instead of loving the money and using the people. And so often, in that season where you lack, I call it wisdom, in that season of life where you're just on the grind. One thing my audience will tell you, there was a season where I was about that life, the grind. I don't grind anymore. I build, but I don't grind. And the reason that I don't grind is because when I was grinding, I was manipulating folks. I was telling folks what they wanted to hear. I was doing all of that stuff because I thought I was building something. But what I really realized is this: there wasn't no real stability. I was like the parable about building on the sand. So what I'm hearing and what I want y'all to take away is love the people and use the money.
Now, here's what I'm not saying. What I'm not saying is that it's bad to have money. It's bad to have wealth.
Yeah.
I'm saying that those things are a tool. It's a blessing to have those things because you're able now to be a blessing to your family, to be a blessing to other people, to do things that you wanted to do in life. But if you got it misaligned where that becomes your God, then you miss the blessing in having that stuff. Having that stuff is great, you know, if you got it and you got it in the right perspective, but it could be the biggest hang up in the world. And you talk about establishing false friends and all kinds of things. You get a bunch of stuff without purpose. Everybody gonna see through it. Everybody's gonna be sitting there waiting to get their little piece. They don't care nothing about you. They just want their little piece. But when you wrap it up in purpose, I mean, let me share with you this. Look at what most billionaires are doing now. I'm looking at Bill Gates and those guys, Warren Buffett. They spent their whole life building all this stuff, building. And now, at the end of their life, in the last part, they're trying to give it away.
They're trying to give as much philanthropy. Yep.
So I'm saying the giving away their wealth is probably the bigger purpose than the gaining of their wealth. If you got it in perspective, the gaining on the wealth should equal the giving of the wealth. It should work hand in hand, right? Because the Bible say, give, and it shall be given unto you. But check this out. What it says, good measure, shaken together,
Mhm.
and running over will men pour into your bosom. So it says, if you give, it will be given unto you, good measure, shaken together, running over, will men pour into your bosom. So here's the significance of that. It's that seed mentality, right? Remember that seed we talked about earlier? That you plant that little bitty seed, give. You planting that little bitty seed, you giving.
Mhm.
And then that little sprout plant prop up and it grows into a tree. Just say if it's an apple seed and it grows into an apple tree and it begin to bring forth fruit. And inside each apple is what? More seed
More
that
seed.
fall to the ground and bring forth more plants, more give, and it shall be given unto you. Good measure, pressed down, shaken together, and running over. How powerful is that seed of giving? If you don't kill that seed, it will always multiply. It's an image of God's, everything in nature resembles God, right? The diversity. This is why I don't understand why diversity and inclusion is a bad thing in some people's sight, because everything about God, what he created, is diverse. Everything, every plant is different, every species is different, everything is different, and it's all beautiful. And I was asking this guy at work one day, I said, look, if you went to your family's house for dinner and you ate that dinner all the time with the same people at the table, guess what? That meal is going to become bland. But when you
Mhm.
start inviting your neighbors in and your community in, and they all bring their dish to the table, and now you
Mhm.
get to taste that diversity and inclusion, now it becomes a feast.
Wow. I love that picture you just painted. That you're helping some people. You are helping some
I hope
people.
so.
Absolutely. Well, listen, so we're in our speed round. We're in our speed round. That means I want you off the cuff, no thought, just first fire out first thing that comes to your mind. Okay. Speed round. Uh, you have 5 minutes to have a conversation with you. Time travel now. You're gonna have a conversation with your younger self. What do you tell your younger self? 5 minutes.
Matthew 6:33.
Mm,
Seek ye first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these other things will be added.
love it. Love it. Okay. Question two. If you had to start over with nothing but your knowledge and experience, what would be your first three moves?
Partnership, mentorship,
Mhm.
education.
Wow, that's good. Partnership, mentorship, that's real good. Because because what most people don't get about mentorship is this: people want information, but information don't give you transformation.
Oh, come on.
Come on, so you gotta have someone that will push you to caterpillar
Yep.
butterfly.
Got to
Really,
pull it out of you. Yep.
yeah. Pour it out of you. Success leaves clues. What's one book, habit, or mentor that changed the way you think about stuff?
Say that again, Earl.
Success leaves clues. What's one book, one habit, or one mentor that changed the way you thought?
Um, I would say Napoleon Hill's
Mm,
Think or Grow Rich.
yep. I like that one. I like that one. They got a remix too. There's Think and Grow Rich, a black choice, where they actually
Really?
interview a bunch of black billionaires and they
Send
pour
me
it.
the link.
Yeah, I will. I absolutely will. Last question. The best opportunities are often hidden in plain sight. What's something that most people overlook when trying to level up?
Nature.
Mm,
I'm going to say nature simply because leveling up, God put clues all around you. And if you take time to observe, if you take time to sit quietly, see, we're flooded with social media, we're flooded with noise. If you get quiet and you begin to observe what God had put in plain sight, prosperity is all around you. The abundance of the kingdom is all around you.
That is deep. That is really deep. I love it. I love it.
You can't miss it.
Final question in speed round. Give us one piece of advice that has made the biggest impact on your journey.
One piece of advice that have made the biggest impact on my journey is that people are not always going to understand your story. They're not going to always understand your vision. They're not going to always ride with you.
Yes.
They're not going to always believe your vision. They're not going to always jump in the bandwagon with you. You got to be able to go alone.
That ego.
Yep.
Yep.
Oh, there's going to be a separation too.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. There's going to be a separation. I had a guy recently tell me, Earl, that you different, brother. I said, praise the Lord. Yes, sir. Absolutely.
Oh, he has no idea. That was a compliment.
Yes, sir.
That was a compliment. So in our tradition, Ocie, what I love for you to leave my audience with is a better idea of your vision for Clanton Farms, and how they can reach out to you with social media if they have a desire or interest to team up or get more information about what you're doing.
Right. I appreciate that, bro. Yeah. So Clanton Farm is in the beginning stages of build out right now. It's a 22-acre farm down in Halifax County, North Carolina, that I'm purposing. It's my ancestral land, and I bought family out, and now I have 22 acres of land. But with that, part of the vision is to support my veteran community, the ones that are struggling with mental health and dealing with the anxieties. I just recently had an opportunity to go down and meet some veterans down in Huntsville, Texas, and the ones that have actually been on the battlefield, and they come back from this battlefield into what's supposed to be a safe community, and they're struggling. They're struggling to get the support from the people that said they love them, from the people that said, that sent them away, and the people that said they would support them once they got back. And we got a lot of people, a lot of veterans homeless. We got a lot of veterans hurting, and we got a lot of veterans committing suicide on a daily basis. So Clanton Farms, and besides that, I wanted to stretch the vision beside the veterans, and we're also dealing with that in our underserved communities, especially our Black and brown communities. So my intent is to build out this farm so that it can be, and I wanted to structure it, and I wanted to look within me and figure out where do I fit in that space, because the place I went down in Huntsville, they had therapists and counselors and all that there. They were more of a organized program that dealt with that. Mine is going to be more of a recreational program where people can get back to rejuvenate themselves back in nature. So I've already linked up with some people that hopefully I'm going to meet with next week that's going to push this needle forward. And that's going to be available. I'm going to say, we're in the build out phase by, I'll say physical year 26, not the physical year 26, but the actual calendar year of 26. We're going to be ready to roll. So we're going to do some building, and I'm looking at escalating this year, and next year, springtime, it should be fully functional. And it's going to also give families an opportunity to rent out the space, the tiny homes, the event center, and places like that, so that they can have their family reunions, have their cookouts, that they can come out there and experience what it is to live in a cabin in a nature retreat, and just to refresh themselves. We deal with a lot of noise. I live in Washington, D.C. up here, and it's a lot of noise. You probably can hear some of it in the background. But, when I go down and get in my space down there, my anxiety level goes. And I think, I want to bring that space to everybody. So look forward to that. And you can reach out to me. I'm on Instagram as well. I think on Facebook, you can look me up by Ocie Clanton. On Instagram, Earl, if you could share my information
Yeah,
out.
I'll share all your social
Yeah.
information. in the program notes. So this is great, man. Great. Because I'm sure you might have people that either have, relatives, friends or family who are vets that may have a desire to get to the next phase of their healing and their process. And then, as well as people who may just want to connect with you to find out if there are any internship opportunities so they can learn from your vision.
Absolutely.
They build out their own vision.
Yeah, we're definitely doing that as well with some family members now that have their own space. I got a couple of people I'm working with now down in North Carolina that is building out, and I'm also tying in the ag community down there in Halifax County, where we can not just bring my resource to them, but the community can bring their resources as well. So we're tying into the agriculture community where we're going to create food for the hungry, for the homeless, and we're going to create this whole adventure and whole space, and also have the healthcare and wellness part of the program as well that can minister to their health needs and things like that. So we're tying up with partnerships on those. So it's going to be a lot coming forward, and we look forward to building this out and getting it done.
Real good. Super excited. But listen, guys, that's another one in the books, episode 70 of Level Up. And I got to tell you, I can't imagine this show going any better than it has. With one of the original G's that motivated me to not just get into this space, but say, hey, be excellent, be dominant, and just continue to push yourself to get better.
No doubt.
So appreciate you so much.
Oh, man, love you, man. Love you.
All right, man. Well, listen, man, as we say always, we want you to be blessed, but more importantly,
we want you to be a blessing.
Want you to be a blessing. Take care. Salute, everybody.
All right. Salute.